Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 255, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Man, I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is
Lotus Prince.
And this was the 10th take, the best one.
And this is the best one.
We will be returning this week with a continuation on our coverage of the life and works of Kentaro Miura, the creator of Berserk, who unfortunately passed away at the beginning of May. But we went through a good chunk of, if not all of the manga, which is like, the bread and butter.
Yeah, the basic
of
plot.
Berserk. Yeah. So I last episode, and I wanted to take this episode to go over the other surrounding things, like other works by Kentaro Miura, and also other adaptations of Berserk and things like that. One thing that I neglected to talk about in part one was Guts' Berserker Armor, which is one of the coolest, most iconic armors in all of pop culture. I have to talk about it because it is it makes him insanely powerful, but it is a double-edged sword, and that's part of what makes it so cool. It is something that fits in with like the Berserk's world.
Because the logic of the armor is that, like, in real life, humans are capable of greater feats of strength and speed than we think they are, because, like, I don't know, you ever see the original Ghost in the Shell movie?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
There's a part where she tries lifting off the lid of this tank or this super robot or something, but the lid's really stuck on, so she ends up tearing off her own arm. Yeah, like, humans could theoretically be like that. Like, you know how if you're a runner your whole life, you can damage your legs over time, or if you're a baseball pitcher your whole life, you could damage your arm over time. Theoretically, if you're willing to just tear your muscle right now, you could probably throw a ball harder than you should be able to, but your body has, like, inhibitors so you don't damage yourself.
Yeah.
The Berserker Armor basically turns those inhibitors off and makes you not particularly care about the pain, but it does restore your injuries. Like, it'll like hold your bones together and stuff like that, but like
it basically
you're breaking yourself up.
But what it does is it doesn't protect you from breaking your, well, it does protect you, but if your bones are shattered, what it does is it basically jams spikes into you and resets everything.
Like, so if you can manage to take the armor off, like you know how when you work out really hard, when you're done, you're like, well, I feel okay now, but I know that's gonna hurt in the morning. Yeah, when the Berserker armor comes off, that fucking sucks, because you suddenly realize what you did to yourself.
Yeah, no, it literally holds you together while you're being pulverized.
Yeah, it breaks you. It lets you break yourself apart, and it holds you together.
It basically keeps you in a Jello mold and keeps your shape.
Yeah.
And what it also does is it also it basically taps into your, like, inner id, and makes you what you are at your base level instincts. So in Guts' case, it basically makes him like the angry, hungry wolf.
Which he already was, so this makes him really... And, like, the thing is, we had mentioned last week Grunbeld, this guy in this super tall, like 7-8 foot tall looking guy with incredibly heavy armor who could turn into a dragon. Guts was able to damage him, and he could hardly believe it. He was like, how is this physically possible? Like, he's a human, even with the armor. Like, this is ridiculous.
And it goes to say that he wields his sword like it's almost nothing in this armor. But the danger is that he also forgets himself. He turns into his id, so therefore he just keeps Guts is already very singular-minded. He only wants to do what he wants to do, and he doesn't take much care or notice about anything else, especially in the beginning of the series. And they basically his supporting characters had to save him from the armor.
Yeah, the first few times he uses the armor, it takes a high-level witch, like, outside intervention to get him out of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna have to remember this at the end of this episode, but in Reactive Consciousness, I forgot to talk about it. A famous death, unfortunately. But I do have to. I will go back to it. But anyway, so I wanted to mention that because it is so iconic of an armor, because like it is not peaches and cream. It is not something that makes him into a superhero. In fact, it's something he has to fight against, and
yeah, like it's a last resort.
Yeah, exactly. And
it makes me think of when like I haven't seen past season 1, so no comment on that. But in season 1 of My Hero Academia, where the whole thing, well, the whole thing is that a kid inherits like Superman's superpowers, like not the flight, but like let's say he inherits the Hulk superpowers. Let's do that.
Okay.
But his body, like he's a little kid, so his body isn't really ready to handle the feats that he can do. So he could punch a building down or something, but it'll completely just utterly shatter his hand when he does it. So he has to go find someone with the superpower of like super healing. So he doesn't want to do super punches. Like he needs to work out for like months before he can pull that shit.
Yeah.
So like anytime he does anything, he just fucks up his own body, and he's like, I didn't want to do that.
Ugh. I never even thought of like, what if you didn't have super healing or something of that.
Yeah, like what if the Hulk wasn't the Hulk? What if Bruce Banner had Hulk powers? He would hate it. He hates being the Hulk anyway, but he would fuck up his own body anytime he punched somebody.
Of course.
He's just some guy.
But yeah, it was so amazing when he acquired it, and it was like later in the series, and it was just it was a really cool breath of fresh air when he received it. It was like really, really fun.
Yeah, and it was great because the build up to it too, because they're like, well, we have it, you probably shouldn't use it, and then Guts is like absolutely gonna die against Grunfeld, and he's like, I'm putting the fucking armor on, and then like his party is just horrified of what he's capable of.
Yeah, because he just turns into he basically turns into a berserker. He turns into a berserker. Like,
he just becomes a monster, and he's like,
just a range monster.
Like he knows not to attack his own party, but like if they tried to stop him, he probably would kill them. Yeah.
If they went in front of him, he would brush past them. You know, he would float right through.
Like he might like accidentally like, oh, I didn't see you, shouldn't have been standing there.
Yeah, exactly. He just doesn't care.
It reminds me of early One Piece, where Captain Kuro uses his super speed, but he moves too fast to know what he's doing. So one of his own guys just gets cut down, and it's like, oh well, you're a person. I can't quite read faces when I'm moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Well, I did want to move on to the adaptations here. So the first, in terms of importance, I would think would be the animes, the various animes that have been made to adapt Berserk. I will reiterate that the absolute best way to experience Berserk is the manga, and always will be,
hands down.
But mostly because the art is in any anime will not be able to approach the level of mastery.
Good luck approaching the quality of the manga and constantly approaching that with movements. Like, you're not doing that.
However, the story was pretty well adapted for probably like the first half of the anime. Was for the 1997 anime series, goes up to the I guess it's post Eclipse. It starts off as
it is, but you don't really. It's like episode 1 or something, but then it's like you might be wondering how I got here, and the real show is the Band of the Hawk and the Golden Age arc, and then it concludes with Guts in the present, like, yup, so that's my past, time to move on, and like you don't really see what the present day is, but you know it sucks.
Yeah, this is a really good adaptation, though. It does a good job at
it's very good
at portraying his his relationship with the Band of the Hawk and Griffith and Casca. It does the
Eclipse is handled quite well.
It is well animated. The Eclipse is extremely disturbing, just like it should be. And it's also one of like the hardest things in anime to watch. It is very very difficult to watch it.
Yeah.
And it should be for multiple reasons. So
that's the point. If you sugarcoat it, then you're missing the point.
Yeah, exactly.
This made Guts angry enough to like be the main character of Berserk.
Yeah, for a long time, people were asking Adult Swim to put this on, and Swim
they couldn't do that.
Adult Swim came back and said, we would love to, and it would fit our like programming.
They'd have to censor that entire episode.
Yeah, they would have to censor
the most critical episode of the key moment in the series would have to be like horribly chopped up.
Yeah, so they didn't. They have gone on record saying they will not do it because they don't want to censor it.
Yeah.
So which is a pretty awesome thing for them to go ahead and say.
Yeah.
I don't know if this series is widely available right now. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's like the DVDs or nothing.
Yeah. So, and I would think that the eBay prices are probably through the roof now that Miura passed away.
Yeah, anything Berserk related. I haven't looked, but I bet it isn't good.
Yeah, I just got the light novel, by the way. It just got sent to my house, so one of the last pieces of media from Berserk. Yeah, the 1997 complete DVD anime series is on best offer for $170 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's just. But this that's not even including the outer box, which I think we both have, right? Do you have that?
No, I don't own Berserk. Our friend Perry does.
Oh, okay, yeah. I would say that it is absolutely worth owning.
I've seen it. He showed it to me, so
yeah.
Got it. But yeah, it would be cool to have.
But yeah, from there in 2012 there were a series of 3 movies. I guess they were OVAs.
Yeah, and again they covered the Golden Age with a little more, like they showed Young Guts beating Basuzo, like that Onion Knight guy.
Yeah, and this series was actually pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Not as good as the 1997 one, but it's pretty good.
I've still only seen the first 2, actually. I have the third, but I haven't watched it yet because like I still know what happens. I just haven't seen it with that animation.
Yeah, I should also mention the 1997 series has some really good music. The
Suzumu Hirasawa.
Yeah, I was just
actually I was gonna address that because Suzumu Hirasawa did the music for the 1997 anime. He also did the opening theme for those OVAs, and he did at least the title theme. But I think the whole soundtrack, maybe, for the Dreamcast game, and he did the whole soundtrack for the PlayStation 2 game. I don't know about PS4, maybe the opening or something.
Yeah.
But Suzumu Hirasawa is, for some reason, just, like, tied to Berserk.
Yeah, it's. I think he's just, since the original anime series, he's like iconically
like
part
his
of
track Forces. The opening theme is just iconic.
Yeah, it's kind of like
I gotta give a shout out to Sign, the opening theme of the PS2 game, and the Suzumu Hirasawa does something very interesting with his music in general. He releases different versions of his own songs, and they're given numbers. So like he's done 4 Auroras, like Aurora 1, Aurora 2, but the Dreamcast Berserk game, the opening is Forces again, but it's a different vibe, and the song's called Forces 2. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, you should listen to this music because it sounds like Berserk. Like it's just like I don't think you can. I don't think you could separate the two. It's just like
you really need to look up Forces and Sign. Especially. Yeah. Forces 2 is damn good, but it's a more laid-back, relaxed kind of feel, which if you're in the right mood for, then that perfectly hits the spot. But if you're looking for, like, angry, get ready for fighting, because that's what Berserk is, music, Forces and Sign, those are spectacular.
And the 2016 show is a travesty, unfortunately.
Yeah, that bothered me because finally we get out of the Golden Age arc, which is good, but it's been done twice. 3 times if you count the original source material. So we finally get to move on, but the animation is bad. Like, it's bad.
It's not even just, like, lackluster or whatever.
They outsourced it. Like, no, it's outright bad, yeah.
And the backgrounds are all CG'd and don't look good. And this is for a property that is famously aesthetically astounding.
That's the whole thing, is that Berserk is famous, even if you're not interested in the story because of the awful things it contains, it's still some of the most beautiful artwork you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Just don't look at the violent scenes and you'll still be satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, if you can look past that, whatever your feelings of that stuff is, it is breathtaking the way it looks.
Like, there are many pages of the manga that you could just blow up and put into a frame, no problem.
Yeah, I've actually been kind of looking for that because a lot of the posters out there are either of the animes, which I wasn't. That's not what I wanted.
They're good, but they're not the manga look.
It's not what I wanted, and a lot of them are like the paintings he made, which are great. I love the paintings. I like them,
but they don't feel the same. Yeah, I know what you mean. They're good, but like that manga cross-hatching is just untouchable.
His panel work is just so iconic and so beautiful. I want that. I want his black and white drawings. With the insane amount of detail.
I want that image of Femto kneeling down and the Skull Knight standing over him with the Hellscape behind them, because that is just like one of the best things I've ever seen.
Some of the stuff that happened during the pirate battles, it was just like insane.
Or when Kushan became a kaiju.
Oh yeah,
that's like when it shows the full body, it's like, what? And then there's the dragon on the tower. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's just. It's hard to put into words. You have to look up the art. The perspective and the shadow usage and the creativity in like body horror and all kinds of other.
He has a real thing for putting human teeth where they don't belong. Seeing human teeth on an animal or a demon is weirdly very off-putting.
Oh, extremely so.
Like even when you see like corny Photoshop jobs, like what if a shark had human teeth? You're kind of like,
or like a realistic Kirby with human teeth. Ugh, terrifying.
Yeah, human teeth are terrifying on anything that's not human.
It's really, it's just one of those uncanny valley things, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. The next, I wanted to go over the video games.
We alluded to them.
There are 3 of them. There might be some other stuff with like Berserk limited content, but it would be like mobile games, that kind of thing. But
there are 3 straight up
major
Berserk
ones.
Games.
Yeah. The first one is on Dreamcast, which is made by Ukes.
It's called Sword of the Berserk, which is a little weird.
It might have been the first localized English Berserk thing officially. I think it might be.
Well, certainly, because it's Berserk thing.
Yeah, I don't think the manga was...
It's kind of like JoJo. The first thing we got was the Capcom fighter. We didn't know what JoJo was.
Yeah, I don't think Dark Horse had started localizing the series yet, and I don't think we had gotten the 1997 show yet, because this was probably 1999. So
which is weird, by the way, because the game is a unique story, but the events that preceded it, like the Band of the Hawk and the Eclipse, like that stuff happened. But then you go off and do like a new story that you don't know what it is. So to be fair, Japan didn't know what was going to happen either, but we didn't know who Guts was or who Puck was or what's going on.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny when you from the perspective of that, and it's kind of an obscure game to begin with, just because of it being on the Dreamcast, which only lasted about a year or two.
And also partly because it's not very good. It's clunky. A big problem with the game is that it went for a bit of realism, where if you swing your sword against like a wall, it bonks off. but you're constantly in narrow hallways, so it's
you're in dungeon
it's a pain in the ass. Like it's only when you're fighting bosses that you definitely can run around and swing. So like to compensate for that, you could put your sword away to fight with your fists. But like, number one, who wants to do that? And number two, Guts never does that.
Weird. And also the camera is very antiquated and not very good for the time either.
And it takes forever to get to a point where you can save. Yeah. Like when I first played the game on an emulator, now I own it for real, but when I first played the game on an emulator, I thought I was doing something wrong or I had a botched downloaded copy or something, but it is a while before you get a save prompt.
Also, the voice acting is pretty damn bad.
But they have very good voice actors, which is the funny thing.
Yeah.
Like Balzac is like, this is going to drive me crazy. Tony J, I think. Like, well, my name. Like that guy. Puck is... It's an irritating performance, to be fair. He's not fun to listen to, but it's Cam Clark. That guy's a legend.
And Puck is easily like the worst part. And Cam Clark is amazing.
You thought Navi was annoying. This guy is number one giving the heavy Japanese pronunciation, and two with a whiny voice. Gatsu! Oh god, like go away.
Yeah, it's not good. Probably the best thing about this is the introduction, which is basically the eclipse. They have like
a little bit of that. I mainly remember you just walking around with like a caravan with playing Forces 2.
Oh, maybe I don't
think they do the Eclipse.
PS2 game. I'm thinking of the PS2 game, I think.
Yeah, the PS2 features the Eclipse later in CG. That looks damn good.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the PS2 game.
The Sword of the Berserk makes a point of doing its own thing. You just should know who the characters are, although if you were American, then you wouldn't when the game came out. But yeah, the PS2 game is far superior. It plays kind of like a Dynasty Warriors game. You're just running around and just cutting down enemies by the dozen. And
I wouldn't call it the PS2 game a Dynasty Warriors style game.
You're cutting down legions.
Yeah, but you're not covering ground or covering territory. You're moving from place to place.
Yeah. That's true. You're not locking in territory. Like I've taken the base or whatever, but like the combat feels Dynasty Warriors-ish, and that you're cutting down legion. Maybe like Drakengard then, where you're not doing it for territory. Yeah. You're just mowing down waves, or not even waves. You're just mowing down mobs, and you can activate little special moves like your cannon, your kunai, or your repeating crossbow. And the boss fights are spectacular. The CG scenes are great. The game actually follows the manga after the Eclipse. You don't play Band of the Hawk
Fairness
stuff.
Is in it, which is pretty great. Yeah.
Who's in it?
Fairness is in the PS2.
Oh, yeah, I always said Farnese. Yeah, she's in it. Ishidoro's in it. What's her name? Shirk is in it. But yeah, like it actually takes place after the Golden Age, which I was very impressed by. You start playing in the snowy area where you fight Zod, and you move on from there. There is one area where there's a unique to the game boss, like a little kid who has a butterfly form, and he gives you flashbacks of Band of the Hawk stuff, but he's his own thing. But otherwise, the game follows the manga except for the final boss, because the final boss, obviously, Berserk wasn't finished then, and it sure as hell isn't finished now and will never be. So they were like, let's give him a final boss. Let's have him fight Zod again. Except it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's to the opening theme. You're fighting boss to Sign, which is like one of the greatest things you could do in Berserk. It's so adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, I have to reiterate that the PS2 game is really one of probably the best one out of the three games.
You don't need to know English to play it. If you know the manga, then you're really good. But even if you don't, kill thing, move on, you'll figure it out. And even the main menu is just in English, which is kind of nice. The in-game stuff isn't, but the title screen and the bonus selection stuff is actually in English, so they make it kind of convenient for you. Even the credits have Japanese and English translations, which I thought was a little strange, but hey, why not?
Yeah, I think that this game is great. It's one of the games that I would definitely tell people to import back in the day.
The final boss is Grunbeld, and then the super final boss to end the game is Zod. Like, so if you know the manga, then you know where we are in the manga at that point.
And what's kind of cool about this game is it is also made by Yuke's, so it's basically it is a sequel to the Dreamcast game. The
Dreamcast is a spiritual sequel, I guess.
Well, what I mean is it's made by the same people, and it's,
But the Dreamcast was just it's a whole unique story, which I gotta say, even though the Dreamcast game isn't very good, I really appreciate unique stories that are not just the manga again, because I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I also want to know. I think you touched on this last time, but it is one of the very few Zero Z games.
The PS2 game. Yeah.
It is basically like a game that has to be sold like behind a curtain in Japan.
Yeah, because like you know how American censors like Americans are, at least the people who control what's on TV and games and stuff. You know how Americans are very uncomfortable with sex and nudity. Japan is very uncomfortable with dismemberment and I think decapitation, and you do that all the time in the PS2 game. It's mostly demons, but like you are cutting people into pieces like just the regular mooks, like just constantly.
It is really good though, and a good adaptation. This is like one of the best. Like
I LP'd the PS2 game if you're interested.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Plus, it also I just like the fact that you have like all of the uses of your arm to use it as a cannon and as a crossbow.
Speaking of which,
stuff.
You know what really made me happy about that is that there are cases where if the enemy turns a certain color, or no, if you power yourself up and go into the Berserk state, you could do a slightly more cinematic, like not cutting to a camera thing, but a little more involved, like insta-kill attack on some enemies, or a more cinematic attack on some bosses. Similarly, bosses, if they flash red and hit you, they'll do a somewhat cinematic attack, and if you do like a perfectly timed defense when a boss does that, then you do a cinematic counter and it looks awesome. But regarding the cannon arm, there's when you fight Zod, a couple other bosses actually do this too, but I most remember it from Zod, is when he's in monster form, when he lifts you up, you're supposed to button mash to struggle out of his grip, but if you have the cannon charged, you just shove it in his fucking mouth and fire for massive damage and he drops you. It's the awesome. Coolest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy this game. It's a lot of fun. It is one of the best. I think it's one of the best action games for the system, to be honest.
It's very good, yeah.
Yeah, it's up there with like Devil May Cry, like the original Devil May Cry.
Well, Devil May Cry is flashy as shit. I would say Guts or Berserk is better at. Berserk is like, it's about as good as a Berserk game could be for the time. Like Devil May Cry isn't trying to be the same thing. It's a whole other level.
I'm trying to say it's a good action game. That's all.
It's a very good action game.
Moving on from that, the most recent game is Berserk
and the Band of the Hawk.
And the Band of the Hawk, which is stealthily a Berserk Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah, it's a Berserk Muso. Yeah, and it's PS4 exclusive, I think. I don't think it's on Steam, is it?
It is on Steam.
It is? Never mind.
Yeah. So this is just like any other Dynasty Warriors like game, or like, you know, they did this with Fist of the North Star. They do it with a lot of licenses. They do it with Zelda.
Yeah, but what I appreciate about all those though is it's not just a copy paste with skin changes. Like, the Zelda game plays kind of like how a Zelda game would if it were a Muso. The Fist of the North Star game is a lot more, for example, slow and deliberate, with you just punching people through walls and shit. Berserk has you going through just mobs and killing it like thousands of guys with one swing of your sword. It feels like a Berserk game if it were a Muso. Like, they do give the games their own personalities. The Dragon Quest Heroes, it feels like a Dragon Quest game with the attitude, and you can go to shops and stuff. So it does stand out. It's not just Dynasty Warriors, except it looks like Guts. Like, it's a Berserk game, which is much appreciated. And Berserk's been begging for the official Muso treatment this whole time anyway. The PS2 game still felt like one, but the Berserk game for PS4 and Steam actually is one. And what I appreciate is that it's called Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. You do go through the campaigning stuff before the eclipse happens, and then you go through the eclipse. But you go past the eclipse and all the way through the Kushan Emperor arc, where the Kushan Emperor is the kaiju Kushan Emperor is the final boss. So that covers most of the manga. It's just missing when they're on the boat and Elf Islands. And there aren't enemies on Elf Island. So, like, and the boat would have been a lame place to end the whole, like, to end the video game. So the Kushan Emperor is as good of a showstopper as any, and you fight Mogsus, you fight Wealds, because those guys were missing from all the other adaptations, including the newer anime. You can even play as Weald, which is kind of amazing.
Neat. Well,
he's fucked up.
I should also say that, you know, this is a pretty good game. I'm not disparaging this one. It's just the PS2 one's just like so good.
Yeah, I think I might actually, admittedly, like the PS2 one a little more, but the PS4 one's damn good.
Yeah, it's a good game, and it is going for a lot of money as a physical.
Yeah, because it only was on PS4, and it wasn't a very highly produced title.
Yeah.
And by the way, one thing that I will admit disappoints me, even compared to other Musou games, is that whenever they could get away with it, the cutscenes would be clips of the OVAs. I hate when they do that. If I wanted to watch the OVAs, then I would. I wanted to see the games animated. So when I got to the Weald arc, it was all in-game stuff because it had to be. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah. But definitely seek this one out. You can get it digitally. Obviously, so that's probably the best way to do it right now, because the physical copies are shooting through the roof due to
this was one of those games that each GameStop had one copy of or something in the first place.
Yeah, and it's very easy to get on Steam. Unfortunately, it's never been discounted very, very deeply, which I've always really wanted to see. But it usually goes on sale for as low as maybe $30, but I would have rather seen 20 to 25.
Yeah,
but
it's a Musou title.
Yeah, I mean right now it's a $60 title on Steam. I wouldn't recommend buying it for $60, but
60 is a lot.
Maybe Sony has it on sale digitally. Let me just.
Well, I'm actually surprised they haven't discounted it precisely because.
Yeah, you would think they would do it. Just to in his honor.
Shout out to Berserk,
yeah. It's 60 on PS4 still, digitally. So, I don't know. Maybe wait until a sale. Honestly. And there's a few things in terms of merch that I wanted to go over. So, for such a good, well-selling manga and anime, doesn't have a ton of merch, believe it or not.
Yeah, not really.
You could see kind of t-shirts and things like that to go along with the anime, but usually the manga doesn't have all that much going on in terms of merch. But I have a much beloved, really well detailed figure of Guts in his Berserk armor. And I really do cherish that. I think it's really awesome, and I don't think a lot of them were produced, so I really enjoy that. It's almost like, if you looked at it, you would think it was a statue, but it is, in fact, a really well-detailed action figure that you can pose. I really enjoy that. I also have the illustrated works of Berserk. I'll show Lotus it because the illustration file. But
the Japanese art book.
Yeah. It's really cool. It does have a lot of his art blown up, which is really, really nice. I got this while we were at Otakon one year, and it's one of the I think it's going for a pretty penny now. It was never produced in English, unfortunately. But I really, really love it. It has some really good versions of the paintings that he makes as well. So, definitely a really cool piece for me to have. And there's also an official guide to Berserk that that Dark Horse recently brought over to America. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the official guidebook. And it basically covers the entire series because it was up to date and it was only, put out like a couple years ago. And in terms of Berserk, that's nothing. So yeah, it's pretty much up to date, and it basically just tells you all of the details and stuff like that, and it also tells you some of the stuff that might have been revealed in maybe interviews and that kind of thing. Also some descriptions of the characters and that kind of thing as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was put out a couple years, maybe a year ago. It's not very old. It's actually like a newer Berserk item. And other than the light novel that just came out, I mean, there's not much else. I mean, I had a couple Gachapon figures as well. I got a Guts and the Casca out of that, but yeah, for the most part, it's pretty tame in terms of that kind of stuff, which is unusual for anime and manga. Now, I quickly, before we go into fan stuff, I wanted to talk about kind of the stuff that influenced Kintaro Miura, and then also the things that he influenced as a result. So one of the illustrators that influenced him very greatly was MC Escher, which I thought was a pretty interesting thing because I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Just in terms of, there are Berserk panels where you have the crazy stairs going everywhere.
Yeah, and just the way that he structures things and things like that. I just thought that was really, really interesting. So, and who else did he? There was also him, like Guts being one-handed is also kind of a reference to Evil Dead. Which we kind of already alluded to, but that's actually something he admitted to referencing. So I wanted to throw that in there because Evil Dead 2 is an insanely influential horror comedy film, and I absolutely love that. And it fits the right time period, right? Mid 80s kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm,
so it makes a lot of sense. Now he's influenced a ton of other things, From Software stuff. We've already talked about how
FromSoft is heavily influenced by him.
Yeah, Dark Souls and Demon Souls. I mean,
and Bloodborne.
I don't even think they're hiding it. To be honest.
No, Bloodborne's save symbol is a close relative of the brand. Dark Souls 3's DLC final boss is Guts. It just is, with a raggedy cape and the crossbow and the big heavy sword. It's not even trying to hide it. There are some low-level enemies in Dark Souls 2 that are Guts in the Berserker Armor, straight up. There's the Bone Smasher or something like that in Demon Souls that's described as a giant slab of metal more than a sword, which is how Guts' own sword is frequently described, and his own sword is called the Dragon Slayer.
Yep.
And you find that Bone Smasher or Dragon Bone Smasher or whatever right in front of the Dragon God boss. You're supposed to use it to finish him off.
Yeah, it's not even trying to hide its references.
Yeah, it's yeah. Blasphemous has the brand as well. It's very close to the brand. Back to FromSoft, the Onion Knights. I mentioned, I think his name was Basuzo or something, the first guy Guts beats when he's a young man. He has Onion Knight looking armor, and there's an Onion Knight in each of the, not Demon Souls, but Dark Souls games, Siegmeyer and Sieglinde and Siegvard in Dark Souls 1 and 3. I don't think they're in 2, but that's okay. There's a bunch of other stuff I'm sure that I'm forgetting. One thing I'm actually curious about, I forgot which was released first, but The God Hand, I think we mentioned this last week, but the God Hand in Berserk look just like the Cenobites from Hellraiser.
Oh yeah. Clive Barker
Yeah.
is an influence, obviously. That's one that I neglected to say, but Final Fantasy VII's Cloud is
yeah, Cloud's giant Buster Sword is a heavy reference. Yep.
Yoko Taro has referenced Berserk as a huge influence for him, the creator.
Oh yeah, the end of Drakengard 1 is the Eclipse.
Yeah.
Similarly, by the way, there's Tales of Berseria, so the name's on the nose, but the beginning of that game is the Eclipse.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a small deal. Dragon's Dogma has heavily influences in terms of like monster design and world building. Devil May Cry, like the characters in that you fight are very kind of inspired by that kind of stuff. It's like medieval. It's like a fusing of medieval and Japanese. Really, it's
yeah,
like,
okay,
really,
yeah. You do have
really
like
cool.
Basically demon apocalypse stuff going on. It's just more in a modern era.
Yeah, the creators of Bacano and Durarara have specifically cited.
I love Bacano to death, but like I don't see the Berserk influence in there.
Bacano's the one with the immortals, right?
Yeah, I guess the idea that like a maybe demon gives them this immortality that they desire, and then some people use it to fuck other people over. But I guess it's like a light touch, but it's not like a horror show all the time.
No, I just think maybe the authors had mentioned it as a huge influence, maybe in maybe their interest in being manga.
That I could see, because like Bacano itself, like,
Durarara is much more
like that I have
aesthetically
not seen.
Inspired. It just in terms of body horror and things like that. Black Butler, I don't know much about, but that was
I don't either.
listed. But Attack on Titan, I think that's pretty obvious.
The whole idea that humans can have that like Titan effect. In fact, there are even some creatures like the Count, the first thing Guts fights in the manga, or like Weald, where their demon forms kind of look like you could see their human bodies like sticking out of this giant body that they're kind of piloting, sort of, and that's very similar to certain characters in Attack on Titan. So I can buy. I wouldn't have guessed Attack on Titan had a Berserk influences at first, but that one is pretty on the nose.
Yeah, and those are like the major ones that I was able to
there's got to be more,
on.
But I'm not thinking of them right off the top of my head.
I did want to mention some of his other works as well, just really quickly. I do have one of his collaborations with Bronson, the author of Fist of the North Star. I do have King of Wolves. That was localized by Dark Horse as well. So he did, Kentaro Miura does the art, and it's in his style, so it is worth reading if you are a lover of his style. But it also, a lot of the characters also kind of have a Fist of the North Star look. He must have been like, okay, I want this to look like Fist of the North Star as well. So it's neat to see kind of like a fusion of what that kind of thing would be.
That's kind of amusing.
Yeah. I don't know if this is still in print, because like I know that some of the stuff still isn't in print, but it's a single volume. And also there is a manga called Japan. It's just called Japan, so it's gonna be hard for you to search. But Kentaro Miura and Bronson also did that. That one is out of print, and I don't have it, unfortunately. So, and that one was localized by Dark Horse as well. And then there are a couple other ones. Gigantomaxia is another more contemporary one that he made. These Bronson ones were actually done in the late 80s, early 90s, as far as I can tell. But the Gigantomaxia are like relatively contemporary, and I'm waiting for that one to come in the mail, actually. I was able to order that. And Duranki is one he only made like a couple of years ago. but I don't see that one being localized anytime. I looked around for it, but I don't think that one's available in English yet. So,
by the way, one other thing I want to mention, going back to Tales of Berseria, I said that it opens with the eclipse, but I kind of forgot the rest of the game, which is also Berserk.
Oh, really?
Because like your character Velvet got fucked over during the eclipse, and she spent years just like building up this desire for bloodlust and revenge against the person who ruined everything, and like she lost a lot of her friends at the time. Her village got wiped out, and she's basically Guts, and she meets new party members and slowly learns to like them and start getting over like the fact that she's not getting her old friends back. So it really is kind of Berserk for like like more palatable for younger people. It's not like a little kiddie game, but like more palatable than how fucking intense Berserk is.
Man, I might want to play that one. That's the most recently released one too, right?
I'm not 100% sure. If not the most recent, then the second most. It's new.
Yeah, and it's a prequel of Zestria, which I didn't. Zestiria, which I didn't.
I didn't even know that, but yeah, it basically is like, what if Tales of did a Berserk game?
Yeah, I'm more interested in that than Zestiria is the one before that that was released chronologically. So. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it about Kentaro Miura. I mean, we did an exhaustive analysis of his works and his influences and everything. So I think we did pretty good here, Lotus. But I have to say once again how devastating it is to lose him at such a inopportune time. It's just it just stinks. But we do have fan stuff to go into.
Yes, although before that, you did say...
Oh.
Yep, from Reactive.
Yeah, so rest in peace, Eric Carle.
That was a surprise. Yeah. If you don't remember him, he's written a lot of books, but I most remember him for the little kiddie book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which I read in like elementary school.
Everybody really loved it. The art style is extremely iconic.
It's a very charming art style.
Yeah, it has almost a like a stained glass mixed with like crafty, like it seems
it's
almost
like crafty watercolors almost.
Yeah, it seems almost like it seems almost like construction paper. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, it's like it looks like a little kid did it, but it's too good to have been done by a little
kid.
You know, it has that look about it, like, oh, it's childish, but like it's still carefully made.
Yeah, it is really, really neat, and
he was what, like 91? He was up there.
He was up there, and I didn't realize he was still with us. So
yeah,
you know, he was certainly a very iconic children's author. And one to be celebrated because I absolutely loved his books when I was a kid, and I would imagine that any kid taking a look at that art style would still really, really love it. So
yeah, the book's beautiful in simplicity. You could easily read it like a little kid today could read it just as well as they could have when we were little kids.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to give him his due shout out because you did mention that, and I did take notice of it, but I just forgot. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
But yeah, like you were saying, now we can get the fan stuff. We have a few comments here. Living Corpse, I'll pick two of these. So this is regarding what we were talking about with eBay starting to police like pornographic material. So Living Corpse says, eBay did not think this through. There's a difference between an R-rated film with a sex scene and a porn. Same applies with games. Yeah, that's true. God of War has sex scenes with frontal nudity, but is it a porn game? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between art and smut, and you know.
And by the way, I should mention when I say God of War, I mean the 7 God of War games that are not the new one.
Honestly, I really think the solution to this is to not ban this stuff. It's to have its own section. Like,
plus, like you really give a shit. Like, you have this moral qualm suddenly, it fucking sells.
No,
whatever.
It's not even that. It's like, if people want it, let them buy it, as long as it's not hurting somebody. You know, it's a consensually made thing.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Just make sure that people are aware of what it is, and to stay away from it if they're not of legal age, and that or don't want that.
Have some caveat. It must be 18 or older, or whatever the age is in other countries, or whatever.
Don't stop people from, like, I mean.
And if some little kid clicks the checkbox, that's on them, not eBay.
The fact that we suppress our sexuality to the extent that we do in the U.S. is
it's
really
embarrassing.
It's really a shame, and it makes people feel bad over time. You know, you should be able to explore that and celebrate it. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
And then Living Corpse also says, this was an interesting point that I never considered. Saiyans are almost extinct and forced to work for Frieza's army, so that makes it more believable that Vegeta would know about Raditz.
Okay.
Like, Nappa's far more powerful than Raditz. Yeah, when there's only 15 Saiyans left, I guess maybe you would know the guy's name.
You would know them all, yeah.
That does make sense, admittedly.
And he is also the prince of them all, so he would know.
Well, that's exactly why I thought he wouldn't know them. Like, do you know the name of every single... But yeah, there aren't that many left, so okay, alright.
That makes sense.
If their species wasn't almost extinct, then he would be another faceless soldier in the Saiyan army. Vegeta would never have noticed. See, that's what I was thinking, but I forgot that the whole reason they worked for Frieza is that they were subjugated and almost wiped out in the first place.
Yeah, Frieza, like, Death Starred their planet, so...
Yeah, cause it's just funny to me that, like, the Overlord is like, oh yeah, Raditz, well, you thought he was tough. It's like, who is Raditz to you? He's some scrub.
Fair enough.
And then Thakafan says, I know that feeling. Yeah, I'm the author, but I don't know what happens yet. Like with Stephen King writing the Future Story or Kentaro Miura. Same for me. You kind of get guided. You just write or draw, and eventually, if you know your setting and characters enough, they'll know. They'll do what they'll do, and your own will or vision be damned. Yeah, and again, that's what we were talking about last week. That's probably the better way to do it, instead of forcing them to get into point B from point A to the point where your readers or watchers or whatever will be like, but that doesn't make sense, and it just feels awkward.
Yeah.
You know what it makes me think of, actually? This was kind of a funny story. I have Hirohiko Araki's like manga theory and practice. It's like his on writing manga book. And he was mentioning his early days as a mangaka, where he was writing, it might have been Bao, and he wanted to have like an homage to Frankenstein, where like a lightning bolt starts the whole thing. So he had this train. He was using like a real train that exists in Japan, and I think it was like a steam locomotive or something. And he was like, yeah, but for the sake of the story, though, I want to make it an electric train so I can get that lightning bolt in there for Bao to work. And then he did it, and then he got 1 million letters from fans to like, oh, actually, you got the train wrong. It's not actually an electric train. It's like, fuck, I shouldn't have made that change. Like, it wasn't, I should have used a different train, or, because people are going to be like, well, that doesn't work, though, if you're trying to make this real life. It's like, shit, you're right. So it's things like that. Don't force it. Just let whatever happens. Find a different origin, or use a different train, or don't have it be in real life Japan, so you can do whatever the hell you want, like whatever. But yeah, make the characters make sense, because otherwise you get the Game of Thrones thing, where Jaime's character development over the course of a fucking decade on TV was thrown out the window in season 8. And like, Jaime wouldn't have done that.
Nope.
And the author probably would have fucking agreed. So everyone was dissatisfied with decisions characters made, because the characters
also Cersei getting a death, an earned death, sucks. Like, yeah. She's the villain. She deserves.
Yeah, she has like a semi-sympathetic. Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah,
she deserves to be punished.
And Dany's story was forced and rushed to the end, so like that felt more like the writer made the decision, even though the character did. And in real life, the characters aren't real, the writers do make the decisions, but there comes a point where what would make sense in the context of the universe I've established, and it's less in the writer's hands than you might think, unless it looks like it was shoehorned in for the sake of getting something to happen. So yeah, the author might not know where they're ultimately going. They might know what they want the very last page to be, but how do they get there? I gotta figure that out. Apparently that's why it's been taking George R.R. Martin so long to write his books, because he's like, what would the characters do? And he has 1,000 characters. Now, our question is also from Vakafon. What is an old inventory / menu thing that we considered regular or normal back in the day, but it's baffling by today's standards? I think of Diablo 2, for example, where you could equip weapons and shield and use them no problem, but having a bow or a crossbow was like a dedication. You ran out of ammo, that was it. It became unusable and you had to carry a lot of it on you, because it would deplete very fast. Made managing inventory a nightmare. Also reminds me of stuff like Kingdom Hearts, where you get an equipable skill at level 33, like blocking. And you had to equip that skill 60% into the game to be able to block. Yeah, it's like a revolutionary new thing. It makes me think of Demon Souls as compared to Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, the only stuff in your inventory that has weight is what you have equipped. So you could carry all the armor you want. It is what you are wearing that has weight. Meanwhile, in Demon Souls, everything, including consumables, had weight. So if you wanted a bow and like enough arrows to kill a dragon, you might have to put other things away so you wouldn't be encumbered by your own ammunition. Even your healing items can weigh you down. It wasn't necessarily questionable by the standards at the time, or even today, because we know why they did that. But when Dark Souls came around, they're like, okay, well, we wanted realism, but that was annoying, so we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And like Bloodborne entirely did away with encumbrance. Because it makes me think of like also like Shadow Tower, where weapons had durability. It's like in Dark Souls they did, but it became much easier to repair that stuff. You could just do it at like a box, whereas you'd have to go to like a particular shopkeeper in Shadow Tower. It's like, oh man, like it's more realistic, but it's just annoying.
Yeah, I would have to say that a lot of early RPG conventions are pretty insane by today's standards, and to the point where it's really hard to go back to early Western RPGs in particular. For instance, having food as not a health item, but actual like food.
For a hunger meter, that's always Grimrock did that, but like,
but that's a throwback game to those type of games. And water, having to keep your party hydrated while they're going through a dungeon is an extra thing that you shouldn't need to worry about, because you're really trying to just survive.
It's capturing the Dungeons and Dragons feel, but even in D&D, that's pretty irritating.
In D&D, unless you have a very strict dungeon master, nobody really takes hunger into effect unless it's part of your campaign story.
Yeah, unless it's a gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to go hunting or anything. Like most of them, it's just like they assume that you have food with you.
Just like whatever.
It's one of those things, like having to go. Like I think there was even one game, I think Risen's like this. You actually have to like urinate, like, or else you get like.
Oh wow.
You get like some kind of encumbrance from that or something.
Wow.
I could be wrong about that, but like
that sounds like something Swery would do, because like in Deadly Premonition you have a food and a tiredness meter, so you'll need to eat and get rest, and like you also shave and change your clothes.
I even think encumbrance is honestly pretty bullshit.
It's annoying.
I think you should have like a Zelda screen where you have all of your stuff available to you.
It's fine. It's fine. By the way, speaking of old RPGs, this is taken for granted today, but I'm thinking Final Fantasy 1, where if you tell everybody to attack the same target and the target dies before your party's done,
oh my god,
your remaining party members will hit the empty space where the monster used to be instead of the next monster. That might have just been, I don't know if that was
programming limitation.
I'm thinking there was just, I'm thinking they just didn't think about it for the programming, but like that's very annoying.
That's a huge thing to overlook if that's a limitation of the program.
I don't know necessarily. But
I think it was actually
regardless.
I think it was actually a challenge element added. Okay, it's like you should know just about where these enemies should be in terms of health.
Yeah, but god damn, dude.
Yeah, no, it's unreasonable to the point where they never did it ever again, right?
Well, because think about it in real life. I don't know why I'd be even attacking in turns in real life, but can you imagine in real life the monster's dead and one of you just runs over and swings at the empty space where it used to be? It's nobody would realistically do that.
I mean, even in Dragon Quest that didn't happen, because in Dragon Quest, in the original Dragon Quest, you couldn't pick which of the party that you were attacking.
It's like Magic the Gathering. You just say attack.
Yeah, you would attack the mob. You would attack the mob, and then the ones in line would get hit. So I mean, it was like that in Dragon Quest for a while, I believe. It's.
Actually, you know what else that makes me think of actually regarding lack of control? Persona 3 versus maybe P3P and later Persona games, where you had full control of your main character, but your party members just did whatever they did.
They had basically kind of like gambits.
You could influence them by focus more on defense or focus on protecting me, but they chose the specifics of what to do. And in later games, it's like, come on, let me control what the hell's happening in the fight.
Yeah,
I don't want to lose because of something that wasn't my fault.
They did away with that in P3P, which is the PSP version.
The PSP one.
Yeah, and
because come on.
They really need to do a modern remake of Persona 3, because the story is very iconic, but stuff like that really should be unfortunately, P3P is locked to the PSP. That's number one. Number two, it also has some content that they didn't carry over.
It's on the PlayStation Store at least, but it's getting to that point.
They didn't have the Fez stuff or anything.
No. It's very irritating. Yeah, they need to do a definitive.
There's no definitive version of Persona 3, unfortunately. As a result,
that needs to happen.
But I mean, mostly stuff like that. But I think we kind of touched on this. I talked about Monster Hunter a little while ago. The fact that in the early entries in the series, you would need to you would need to have a spit and a shovel and a couple other things that you would never in your right mind take out of your inventory. So therefore, they're always taking up slots. But in the recent games, they assume that you have that stuff, which is the way it should be.
That's one thing I like with newer games where they have your regular inventory and then a separate section for your story-only stuff that we're not even going to include in your regular menu because this isn't what you're looking for. It's just the MacGuffin you need for the story to happen.
Yeah, it should be like that. This all comes down to quality of life stuff, and I'm sure there will be stuff in the future where they're like, wow, you guys lived without this or whatever. But
one of my favorite things was you showed me in Dragon Quest XI, and then I experienced it for myself in Yakuza Like a Dragon. What was it?
The run button?
No. The because Yakuza's had that forever, but the ability to go to the regular menu and press one button to do whatever makes sense to heal everybody instead of going into your mage's menu and casting heal on specific party members. This only heals 60 points of damage, but my guy's down 200. Click heal medium. Bloop. Click heal medium. Bloop. Click heal medium. Bloop. Next character. It's now you just press one button to either use all the magic that would have made sense or consumables if they would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally one button, and you do all that you can. That's
Like a Dragon has that feature now too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You showed me in Dragon Quest XI, and I experienced it in Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's hard to live without it because especially in early game, you need to heal after every fucking battle. And you
have to go into your mage's menu and select the spell and then select the guy you're healing each time. I was watching somebody play FF1 recently, and what's funny is that because it's such an old game, the sound effect of you healing overrides the music and the music resets.
Sure.
So you hear the beginning of the theme of whatever area you're in
playing
4
over
times.
And over and over again. Yeah.
It's do 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 and you just keep interrupting yourself. It's like, oh, come on. I know that's not anybody's fault, but it's just like, we could do better than this at this point.
Yeah, RPGs unfortunately have had a lot of growing pains to get through, and I think we're honestly in probably the best age of RPGs right now.
Oh, and here's a real big one. Here's a real big one, by the way. I don't know if this was the case for the older games, but I assume it was because you don't know until you try. America didn't get visual novels until way later, but like, imagine old visual novels when you're replaying a different branch and you didn't have like a speed up the shit I already read button.
Yeah, the first game that I ever experienced with that was 999, honestly.
Yeah, because the speed up everything I've already read button for a VN is like the most important thing you can have.
Yeah, I mean,
having like, to mash the button the whole time just sucks.
Especially like a game like Steins Gate with like
1,000 paths.
Yeah, exactly. It's 1,000
half of the
paths.
plot is the bad ends. Yeah.
It's basically the Groundhog Day the game.
Yeah, it's physically exhausting having to like mash the button. I know you're pressing a button. How hard could it be? But when it's all you're doing for minutes, it's like, come on.
No, I completely agree. I think it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't consider it, but like once you learn about it, like, how did I ever get by without this?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting more into the menu side of things here, but like,
that was the question.
Yeah, I'm just saying, and also I'm really enjoying the fact that almost every game these days has like quick save ability.
Yes,
that is probably the most important thing that was added to every game that I can think of. I mean, there are games that have like persistent saving, like the the From Software games, the Souls-likes.
Yeah.
But at least you can quit whenever you want, which is pretty great. And
in fact, when you do, it saves.
Yeah, exactly. But many more games. I mean, games are gonna get more and more portable over time. I know people probably don't believe me about that, but I don't think you'll be playing I think you will be playing things on a Switch-like device eventually. And even like high-end games, I think you will be playing, be able to play portably. And I think there's even a rumor going around that like Valve is working on something that will play like Windows stuff like in a Switch-like manner, which I think that would be really neat. But yeah, I just think that it being able to save anywhere is something that we should have always had.
Yeah.
Because like I can't tell you the amount of times when I was playing NES or Super Nintendo when I was a kid, and my mom just like wants me to go do something.
Time to go to school. Like, fuck.
Yeah, or we had to go somewhere, or I had to go to bed.
It's time for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Life interrupts you. So back in the day, we would keep our systems on overnight.
Yep.
And hopefully the power wouldn't go out or something. You know what I mean? So we could get back to it, or even worse, your mom would notice that it was on and turn it off.
Yeah, that shouldn't be. Yeah.
Exactly. That's happened to me. Mom. But but yeah, I mean, I think saving is. Saving's been around. Like persistent saving has been around in PC games for a very long time, but like console games have just kind of
not so much.
Gotten better at it. The quick save key has long been a thing. Since even Doom. And then probably before Doom, there was stuff that you could quick save with. So.
Oh, and you know what? I'll give one more shout out to something. How we ever dealt with this being a pain in the ass. So there's multiple levels of this. The worst is unskippable cutscenes.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
Especially before a boss that you keep losing to.
Absolutely.
Heavenly Sword. The next level was skippable cutscenes, but if you accidentally pressed a button or whatever, or like you had to go somewhere, too bad. Or if you skip the cutscene, it's gone. So now we've reached a point where a lot of games allow you to pause the cutscene, and within the pause, there's a choose to skip button, which is just great. but like unskippable cutscenes was the worst.
How about missable events? That's really bad too.
Yeah, Yakuza really evolved with those, where sub stories were missable, or you could outright fail them, and that's your playthrough. You failed the sub story, do a new game plus to have another chance.
Yeah, a lot of games these days will straight up tell you this is the point of no return, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Or even the concept of old beat 'em ups, for example, on the Genesis and Super Nintendo, having lives and continues. That made more sense when you were in the arcade and you had to pay to keep paying for it. But now, I just want to beat the damn game. So a lot of games have just the infinite continue option unlocked because you just want to see the end credits. We know.
Yeah.
It's not about proving how cool you are that you could beat this in one credit in front of all your friends. Nobody gives a shit.
I mean, the exception would be, a game that is still derived from arcade-like gameplay, like a shmup.
When they're specifically going for the retro feel, I get it, but like nobody gives a shit about your high score unless it's a game that's a modern game that's designed around the high score.
Yeah,
if it's
exactly.
if there's any kind of story, or if it's all about how cool the final boss is, just get to the final boss. It's fine.
Yeah. That's a big one. The
idea that you could permanently game over on like these old games. It's like, but why though? What was also baffling, even at the time, was you'd run out of lives, but then you could continue, but you had limited continues. And it's like, well, what are we even doing? Why didn't you just give me 5 times as many lives? Like Ghosts and Goblins, ironically, because that game's fucking stupid, but that game did it right, where you had limited lives but unlimited continues.
Yeah. Huh. But I think that I think we explored that one pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, probably. I don't know how much more I could talk about like menus specifically or something, but pretty good. Oh, you know what? No, one more thing that pisses me right off is when a game has a brightness setting, but the brightness setting is just that color swatch where it tells you to like adjust your TV's brightness. Fuck you. Let me change the brightness in game.
Here's another one. I just thought of it. Since this is like a UI thing.
Yeah.
Games have gotten so much more cognizant of people with various ability.
That's true. Yeah, Last of Us 2 is really good with like differently abled this, differently abled that, like colorblind people or like sensitive to this or that. Like they're very good.
Yeah, I was gonna say colorblindness is a thing, and also even something as simple as easily legible text.
That's true.
That's actually useful for even people that don't have a problem hearing. Just so, and
same goes for subtitles. You get white on white a lot, but the Last of Us 2 had like the option to put a background behind your text, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of people love playing the game with subtitles anyway, just because you might have a lot of things going on around you.
And sometimes you can't hear shit, even the way the audio is intended.
Or you're playing late at night, or whatever.
And you know what I thought was really cool, by the way, was you know how sometimes subtitles might spoil you by showing you who said something, but your character doesn't know it yet because they're off screen. I think I actually saw an option to toggle that or not. Like, do you want to make it ambiguous until it's out, or just spit it out because we don't care? Like, that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing I noticed, by the way, there's this game that's like fun for the whole family called House Flipper.
I don't know that one.
You're a house flipper. You buy some piece of shit house or a cool house that's been under some hard times. You clean it up, you sell stuff you don't need anymore, you buy stuff you do want. It's surprisingly relaxing. But one thing they have is one of the things you may have to deal with is a bunch of gross like cockroaches crawling all over the place, and you have to have like some super vacuum to get rid of them, but it's gross because there's a bunch of cockroaches. They actually had an option in the menu, if that like really bothers you, to change the cockroaches to little shards of glass, so you could deal with that instead if you're like afraid of insects. Like that's pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome. I think even I know this is kind of funny, but like I even think like a violence slider isn't such a bad idea either.
And they've had settings in those. I mean, not every game has had those, but games have had those for a surprisingly long time.
Also, some games are getting a little bit better at warnings, like trigger warnings and stuff for people that just do not want to deal with certain topics. And that I think that's perfectly okay. I think warning,
Well, yeah, you play games like, I mean, I was gonna say you play games to have fun in your own way. There are some games I wouldn't call fun,
no.
like Corpse Party, but like you play the game to entertain yourself in one way or another. Like you're not playing the game to literally traumatize yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think people that are willing to experience that kind of thing, that's fine. But you should also tell people, certain people just don't, want to have like some people have PTSD from certain things, and like they can't deal, they don't want to have that in their entertainment. So I think having a fair warning, just like a lot of other things that, in terms of offensive content, I think warnings beforehand of what something may contain, is actually a good thing. It's like an upfront thing. So
yeah, and speaking of which, the specificity of these things greatly varies.
Yeah,
but like when you see the ESRB rating on a game, like look on the back of the case, or if you're on digital, scroll down and read like precisely what makes it rated M, because they can get more specific, like violence or sexual content or this or that or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of censorship in general. Everybody knows that about me, from listening to me, but listening to the show. But like, I think having a fair warning of what you're getting into is a good idea. I also think that about like stuff that hasn't aged well. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
I don't want to see something censored, obviously, or changed, because it's a historical document of what happened. It also minimizes what the fact that we've grown from where that stuff was.
Well, that's the thing. Like Yakuza 3 had like a trans panic sub-story that is not in the remaster because it's in very poor taste.
Yeah, I don't think that's censorship, because it's not going back to the original game and removing it. But it also, did they remove it from the game proper, or the remake, I guess?
Yeah, the PS4 re-release, yes, it was removed.
Oh, okay.
That's like one of the only things Yakuza has ever outright removed, except for Yakuza 5, when they cut out half the fucking game because they thought Westerners would understand it. That wasn't censorship, like it kind of was, but it was for stupid reasons.
Yeah, I'm mostly talking about like old Disney cartoons. There's plenty in old Disney cartoons that it's just flat out wrong. Like as a very beloved one, Peter Pan, has an entire song that is racist.
Yeah, the Native American one.
Yeah, exactly. And what Disney does is that they warn you ahead of time. Hey, there are depictions of there are bad depictions in this, and it was never right. But we are leaving it to its original format.
Yeah, Warner Brothers did that too with its World War II cartoons. They're like, in some cases, this shit was intentionally racist, and like, we're not going to pretend we didn't do it. Just be aware before you go in.
Exactly, and it also frames it in that this was wrong, and it was always wrong.
Yeah,
and they did that with the Muppet Show too. There's a few episodes of the Muppet Show. The Muppet Show's from the early '80s, late '70s. That have that parody people from other cultures. Even as something as wholesome as the Muppets, even did that kind of stuff back then. I have one of the banned Dr. Seuss books, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
I found it while
I have all the places you go. I don't even know if I have other ones.
I have Let's Make a Zoo or one, and I didn't even know I had it, which is kind of funny.
Wow.
But yeah, I think if you contextualize something, and say, hey, no, this is wrong, but it, if you want to look at what was created back then and how we got here it is. I think that's quite all right. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So, and also it allows you to study it. Like, especially, if an adult looks at it and is like, oh, wow, look at this.
Yeah.
But, don't give it to a kid and say, here, this is the way it should be.
It really is amazing, though. Like, we look back at the stuff our parents grew up with in the 60s, and we're like, well, that's openly racist. But then, like, yeah, even the stuff we grew up with, though.
Oh.
A lot of it is not aged well.
How about Ace Ventura? Like, that's one you can't go back to.
Yeah. And or, like, some of the old Leisure Suit Larry games.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about Ace Ventura. It's basically a parody of the Crying Game,
it was a reference, but, like, just because it's a reference does not excuse it.
No, it definitely does not. It's hard to go back to because there's some great bits in the original Ace Ventura, but oh my god, like the whole movie hinges on transphobia. The entire plot. So like it's not. I think that's the reason why on TV you only really ever see the second one. Because it's rightfully so. You know what I mean? It's just like one of those things. But anyway, I think we explored that pretty well. What do you think, yes. Lotus?
I think we're probably good.
Yeah. Thank you, Fekafon, for the topic.
We have one more.
Ooh, good. Well, we need more, that's for sure. That is the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and Soundcloud pages. Please do, guys. We would love to hear what you have to say, and we also want to keep doing these question and answer ones. I always love it. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. Please do it. I'm so discouraged. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, where we will take a look at the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Man, I'm tired. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much everything. Just give me a shout out first.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right, everybody. We'll catch everybody on Tuesday then.
Until next time, everyone.
All right, bye.